Hello, my friends. It's that spooky time of year again. Time of witches and ghosts and pumpkins and bats and skeletons. Time for pumpkin spice everything. A time for comfort foods. And just a time to get out there, pick some apples, carve some pumpkins, go on a hayride. But also a time to focus on some of the spookier things that exist in Pennsylvania German culture. So sit back, grab your favorite spice cider, and enjoy the 6th annual Pennsylvania Dutch Powwow Halloween Spooktacular.
Hello friends, Sean Sanford Beck here. I'm a prairie broker. I'm part of the Phoenix line. I'm living in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada on Treaty 6 territory. Today, it's a beautiful fall day, beginning of fall, but we're going to get into spooky season. That means that it's time to talk about some things like graveyards. That's what I want to talk about today. And I want to take you on a little tour of a graveyard, a cemetery that is right literally 30 seconds away from where I live. So this is my house here in the background, and my graveyard is about 30 seconds away. So I'm going to take you there. Okay, so I walked about 30 seconds away, and here's the literal hedge, and I walk through the hedge. Here I am, my favorite cemetery. It's a beautiful place. This is called Woodlawn Cemetery. It's a great place to be, very peaceful. So the first thing I do when I come into the cemetery, you can see here, I come to a crossroads. There are paths all the way through here. So I come to a crossroads, and what I do, I always bring peace. I give peace to the east, peace to the south, peace to the west, and peace to the north. And every day, every morning, I come here and I start my walk and I do my prayers here in I call it my cemetery. Of course, it's not my cemetery, but I feel like I belong to it. So there's lots of teachings about cemeteries and graveyards throughout various cultures, and of course those sort of come to the fore when we get into spooky season. Soon the leaves are going to be starting to turn orange and brown and yellow, and it is going to look very creepy in here, but I love it. I love it. There are some folks who won't live in this neighborhood because it's too close to the cemetery, but I just think this is a great place to be. So, cemetery lore. Of course, different places have different traditions. I asked Rob a bit about this. He said, here's some traditions. He said, if rain falls on an open grave, a relative of the recently deceased will join him soon. Or how about this? Rust from a cemetery gate will protect against evil. Or, when you drive or walk past a cemetery, hold your breath or you will be its next occupant. Ooh, not sure about that. I couldn't hold my breath walking through this cemetery. I'd pass out real soon. So every culture has its own sort of different teachings about cemeteries and graves and how you keep graves, and every different folk magic tradition seems to have different teachings as well about the cemetery or the graveyard. For some, it's a place of danger. There are haints, there are ghouls and ghosts that are around, and they can sort of jump on you and stick with you. So it's a place of danger. For others, as in Ozark folk magic traditions, the cemetery is a place of great power. It's a place where the things that you gather from the cemetery to help you in your prayers and your magic are extra powerful. And if you're actually able to do prayers in the cemetery, they have extra power too, because it's a gateway to the other world. And it's a place where the ancestors are. And they lend their goodwill to our work. Of course, I always think of this cemetery a little bit like a big church. Lots of crosses, lots of religious symbols, and I never I never go through the cemetery without paying my respects to Mother Mary. Here she is. Of course, many statues of Mary and Jesus and angels throughout this place, but I always say a special prayer right here. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women. Blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Friends, as we get to spooky season, visit your local cemetery, say a prayer, and enjoy. Happy Halloween.
Hello, my friends, and I would like to talk to you quickly about making a Brauca bag and other forms of protection that you can use to keep yourself feeling safe during this dark time of year. To make a Brauca bag, they're very simple. It's just a small cloth pouch. It can consist of simply a written prayer, and that could be it. The Brauca bags are very simple. However, I decided to make this one a little bit more interesting. I'm adding 3 chicken bones of varying sizes. Chickens are known to make a lot of noise and a lot of fuss when something strange or dangerous or threatening is in the area, so I thought that was fitting. So the bearer of this pouch will be alerted in some way, shape, or form if something odd is coming into their territory. That's generally it. If you want, you could add a little bit, like here's some hawthorn. Hawthorn is very protective. And we'll tie it up, and then the individual just carries it on their person, like tucked underneath their shirt. As long as it's touching the skin, it will work. They can keep it under their pillow, they can keep it under their mattress, on top of the mantle in their home, wherever they feel they need it. Other forms of protection are, of course, iron horseshoes. That comes from the Passover, the blood over the arch of the doorway, so that will protect from malevolent spirits and witchcraft. Horse hair from the tail of a horse kept will protect your home against evil spirits. We have iron nails. These I think are silver, but silver works too. These kept around your home will offer some protection as well. So these are just some of the things you can do to protect yourself or a loved one during the darker time of year. Enjoy.
The apple butter recipe that I'll be showing you today is the Blue Ridge apple butter from the new Double Day cookbook. If you don't have an apple corer, an easy way to core the apples is to cut it in half again, and then cut it in half again, and then just cut into it diagonally, and it takes out the core. As you can see, there's not a ton of water, it looks like, in the apples. That's because you just want to cook the apples at this point, and the more water that's in here is just going to be water that you're going to have to cook out later. Okay, the apples are now done. I've cooked them for about 30 or 35 minutes. You can tell when the apples are done when they're very, very soft. As you can see, they're kind of starting to fall apart. And also the liquid that was in it is very much reduced and thickened because of the pectin that was in the peels. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and blend this up. I'm going to run it through a food mill. If you don't have a food mill, you can use an immersion blender, or you can use a regular blender. Because this is hot, if you do use a blender, do be careful that you don't let the steam and pressure build up so that it doesn't sort of explode out and burn you. You can also, if you don't have a blender or an immersion blender, the recipe says to rub it through a fine sieve. So if you have a fine sieve, you can also force it through that, making sure to press out as much of the liquid from it as you can so that you can get all that wonderful flavor in there. Okay, so I have run those cooked apples through the food mill. What we have now is applesauce. At this point, there's no sugar or salt or spices or anything in it. It's just the cooked apples. What we're going to do next is we're going to measure this pulp, and the amount of sugar that we're going to put in is based on the amount of pulp that is in here. Okay, so after measuring the applesauce that I made, I had 6.5 cups of the applesauce. So I like to err on the side of putting less sugar in personally, especially because the apples that I'm using are very, very sweet. So I'm going to go with a 1/2 cup of sugar per cup of applesauce. So because I had 6.5 cups of applesauce, I need 3¼ cups of sugar. So I have that in here, along with 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, a 1/4 teaspoon of ground cloves, and a 1/4 teaspoon of allspice, as well as a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, which you can't really see because it's the same color as the sugar. So I have returned the applesauce to the cooking pot, and I'm going to add in the spices and sugar. Give it a good mix, and then I'm going to go ahead and turn this back on the heat. I'm going to put it on a low heat so that it does not burn. I'm going to stir it occasionally, probably every 10 minutes or so, 10-15 minutes. Do be careful because this does get hot and it does start boiling. Once it starts boiling, it tends to pop, especially once it starts cooking down more and becoming thicker. So be very careful not to burn yourself, because when it pops out at you, it is very, very hot. And because it's essentially hot sugar, it will burn very, very badly. At this point, the apple butter is finished. I've cooked it for about an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes. As you can see, it is much darker in color. It's reduced down a lot. It's much, much, much thicker than it was before. And the way that you can tell when it has been cooked long enough is if you put a little plate in the freezer while you're doing the entire process so that it can get nice and cold. And then you put a couple little dollops of the apple butter onto the cold plate and let it sit for about 2 or 3 minutes. If it can still hold its shape like this is, and it stays nice and firm and doesn't sort of just splodge out, and it stays mounted up like that, then that means that it is done.
Just outside of Columbia, Pennsylvania, in Lancaster County, is a place known as Chickies Rock. It is a quaint, forested overlook giving breathtaking views of the Susquehanna River. In the 1800s, the area became a very popular picnic area for church and school groups. However, the picnic-goers soon found their peaceful retreat interrupted by the whimsical antics of the albatwitch. The albatwitch, or apple tosser, is roughly 4 foot tall, like a short version of Bigfoot. He lives in the woods of Chickies Rock and likes to prank tourists by tossing apples. Sightings of the albatwitch have been reported for nearly 150 years, but this mysterious, elusive little prankster is way too clever to be photographed. This spooky season, take your family on a road trip to this lovely area. Maybe you too will catch a glimpse of the albatwitch.
Hello y'all, Catherine here. Today, for the Halloween Spooktacular, I'll be covering a powerful yet very easy to use and cheap tool that can truly help you in terms of spiritual protection. The St. Benedict medal, which you can see on the front, has a picture of St. Benedict. Again, I don't know why it is not focusing, so on the back you'll see it has some signage, which is very, very important. St. Benedict is a Catholic saint who is often considered the patron saint against witchcraft. Typically, people will call upon him to protect them against malevolent magic, which if you are somebody who's practicing Hexenmeister work, or really in general, this is a good thing to have on you. You can use it in a variety of ways. They're very cheap. You can get them at basically any Catholic store. They're probably one of the most popular metals, and Amazon has them for like a dime a dozen. If you want, this isn't necessary in my opinion, but you can get them blessed by either a Catholic or Episcopal priest. And you can either wear them around your neck, keep them in your pocket, keep them in your bag. I personally keep them in charm bags, which there's 1,000 words for those, but you can simply slide them in there, and I found that works very good, especially in bags intended for protection purposes. It's a very powerful tool that has truly helped me a lot. So if you want an easy way to do spiritual protection, why not pick one up? Most of them are for less than $1.
Hope you all enjoyed this fun look at some of the traditions and interesting things about Pennsylvania German culture and Halloween. Have fun out there. Stay safe. Stay spooky. Happy Halloween.